Hi there, viewers, welcome back to the channel. Anime Insights. Today we will be recapping the series, Kaiju number 8. Let's dive in. Set in a world where monsters known as Kaiju regularly attack human beings, Kafka Hibino's job is to clean up after the defense force once they are done killing the monsters. It is a thankless and tiring job, and is also very disgusting since Kafka spends his entire day cleaning up monster guts. One day, he is tasked with watching over a new recruit known as Reno Ichikawa, who is new to the world of kaiju cleaning. Kafka helps him out, but they end up getting attacked by a kaiju monster. Both Kafka and Ichikawa barely make it out alive, and, in the end, Mina Ashura, the leading captain of the defense force, has to save them. Mina was once Kafka's childhood friend, and now Kafka feels bad about being weak and incompetent. Back at the hospital, Ichikawa is thankful to Kafka for his help and aid, but things are about to turn weird as a parasitic kaiju enters Kafka's body and turns him into a kaiju and human hybrid. Ichikawa freaks out as Kafka tries to tell him that the monster is really just him. They end up escaping from the hospital because Kafka could end up dead in his current state. Ichikawa and the transformed Kafka have to run away from the hospital because the defense force has been called in. As they make their escape, a kaiju emerges in a nearby area and starts to create chaos. Kafka notices that a house is right in the center of the attack and that a little girl and her mother are in grave danger. Kafka decides to use his newfound powers as a kaiju to defeat the monsters. He realizes that, as a kaiju, he holds great strength and kills the other monster with ease. The little girl is still scared of Kafka, and she hides behind her injured mother as Ichikawa helps them out. Even though he is in his kaiju state, Kafka is nice to the girl and calms her down. He decides to leave with Ichikawa once the defense force arrives. 3 months pass, and Kafka's kaiju has become more famous and everyone is trying to hunt him down, but Kafka himself learns that he has passed the first test for the defense force. The second test is the one he usually fails, and together with Ichikawa, Kafka heads towards the examination center for the second test. While there, he runs into a strange girl who calls herself Shinomiya, and she seems to be quite strong. Shinomiya accuses Kafka of having a kaiju smell, but he quickly thwarts her questioning by mentioning that he works as a kaiju cleaner. Shinomiya is not really convinced and remains suspicious of Kafka. The second test starts, and the first part is a physical one which is difficult for Kafka to pass. He barely manages to get through, and even has a run-in with Shinomiya and her guards. The second part of the exam is even more grueling, as it requires candidates to defeat some kaiju. Everyone is given a special suit which can enhance the wearer abilities. Ichikawa and Kafka team up and fight against the kaiju while using Kafka's knowledge of the monsters. But he gets caught by a kaiju and is almost eliminated from the exam until Shinomiya helps rescue him. Shinomiya ends up killing most of the kaiju in the area, leaving Kafka and Ichikawa to stare in awe. It looks like the test is about to end, but then all of a sudden, all the dead kaiju start reviving and attacking everyone. Another humanoid and intelligent kaiju has intervened and is bringing the dead kaiju to life. Shinomiya goes against this kaiju, but she fails miserably and gets brutally injured. Kafka has to step in, and he transforms in front of her. He takes care of the rest of the kaiju and tells Shinomiya not to reveal his identity to anyone. In the end, Kafka saves the day, but no one knows the truth, and the exam ends with 0 casualties. Mina visits Kafka at the hospital to thank him for helping Shinomiya, and the others escape. Meanwhile, Shinomiya is admitted to the hospital where she receives intensive care. After the difficult test, Kafka and Ichikawa pass the exam and join the defense force. However, Kafka is only joining as a cadet and will need to train a lot more before raising his rank. In fact, it was the vice captain Soshiro who wanted Kafka to join because he finds him a little suspicious. Once the entrance ceremony is done, Shinomiya meets up with Kafka and Ichikawa and tells them that the defense force is known to capture powerful kaiju similar to Kafka's transformation and turn them into high-powered weapons. This is why Kafka can never reveal his true self to anyone. Ichikawa begins his intense training, and afterwards Kafka joins him for a bath. Kafka reveals his childhood connection with Mina to the other guys in the group, and all of them turn green with envy. Later on, Kafka's life as a cadet is in full swing, and he trains hard every single day. But another kaiju attack alerts the defense force and Kafka gets to go on his first real mission. A strange fungal type of kaiju has appeared in the city, along with several smaller kaiju that are taking over the streets. While the force throws missiles at the monster, the troops are all sent to the front line to contain the monster outbreak. Ichikawa, Shinomiya, and the others are on the ground fighting the kaiju, but Kafka feels a little useless. There isn't much for him to do since his fighting capabilities are not that strong. However, his years of experience as a kaiju cleaner allow him to detect special features within the monsters that can be used to limit their numbers. Kafka tells Soshiro about the kaiju's reproductive organs, and the vice captain shares the information with the rest of the troops. He commends Kaiju for his knowledge, and then the team is called back because Mina will be firing her powerful cannon to destroy the bigger kaiju. Kafka stares in awe as the cannon rips through the kaiju with a surge of power. Everyone applauds Mina for her strong abilities. With the big monster now dead, the next step is to take care of all the smaller monsters that will emerge from its body. Soshiro instructs the force to clean up the smaller enemies and then wrap things up. However, Ichikawa, along with Ihara, another Defense Force soldier, come across the humanoid kaiju disguised as a cleaner. Iharu and Ichikawa are attacked by the humanoid kaiju, and Ihara ends up getting brutally injured. They try to call for backup, but it doesn't work, because the kaiju has the ability to block all communications. The two soldiers are basically blocked in, and the kaiju spares no mercy. It continues to attack them, and Ichikawa and Iharu can barely go on. News of the attack reaches Kafka and Shinomiya, and they spring into action. Meanwhile, Ichikawa is on the verge of dying, and Iharu hopelessly watches as his comrade is almost killed in front of him, but Kafka arrives just in time in his transformed state. He slices the humanoid kaiju in half and takes Ichikawa to safety. But he is not done yet. The humanoid creature gets right back up. Kafka fights the monster and even manages to expose its core, but the defense force arrives and decide to point their guns towards Kafka's kaiju. This allows the other humanoid kaiju to run away. Kafka has to run away immediately, and he hides in an alley, but Soshiro finds him and unleashes his full power. Soshiro is ready to unleash everything that he has to defeat Kafka's kaiju, and Kafka himself barely escapes from his lethal attacks. Soshiro manages to expose Kafka's core and is about to destroy it, but Kafka escapes in the nick of time. With no other way to avoid capture, Kafka also uses his strength to break Soshiro's weapon and then flees the scene. The mission finally comes to an end as Soshiro informs Mina about the kaiju that he fought again. Meanwhile, Kafka and Shinomiya visit Ichikawa at the hospital, where he is getting treatment for his serious injuries. He seems to be in a bad state, but once him and Ihara are discharged from the hospital, they receive a welcome celebration and are offered the best, most expensive food. Things start to go back to normal as Kafka and the rest take part in the celebration, but then Soshiro takes the opportunity to let Kafka know that he has been promoted. Later on, Mina herself gives Kaiju a medal for his promotion, and she also lets him know that she remembers the promise that Kafka made to her about staying by her side. However, unbeknownst to everyone, another humanoid kaiju is heading towards the Defense Force headquarters with a bunch of flying kaiju. The Defense Force prepares for a fierce battle as the flying kaiju and their leader, the third humanoid kaiju, enter the base and attack everyone. Soshiro has to spring into action and take on the humanoid kaiju, while the other troops get ready to fight the smaller enemies. Kafka notes that the flying creatures usually work alone, but they seem to be under the humanoid kaiju's control. Things only get more intense, and Ichikawa, Iharu, and Shinomiya also have to give their best to take down the kaiju that are infiltrating the city. Shinomiya even gets to use a new powerful weapon that allows her to slice through the kaiju effortlessly. Meanwhile, Soshiro engages with the new humanoid kaiju that only grows stronger. With each slash of his sword, the kaiju is able to regenerate his limbs. Soshiro is in a tight spot once the humanoid kaiju grows into a colossal size and overtakes the entire city. It is too big and powerful for one person alone. Now that the kaiju has grown in size and strength, Soshiro gives it his all to bring it down. He uses all of his sword techniques on the monster, but it keeps on regenerating. Everyone watches in horror as Soshiro seems to be reaching his end because his suit is also giving up on him. It starts to look like Soshiro is fighting a losing battle, but then Mina steps in to save him. She uses her cannon to obliterate the monster while Shinomiya and Soshiro move on the ground and work together to bring the monster down. The Kaiju's core is finally exposed, and with the combined effort of Shiro and Mina, the Kaiju is finally defeated. However, more trouble is brewing as the flying Kaiju merge together to form a big bomb that can destroy the entire city. With no other choice left, Kafka transforms in front of everyone and pushes the bomb away, causing it to explode in the atmosphere. But now his secret is out, and the defense force moves in to arrest him. Kafka is now completely under the control of the defense force, and Shinomiya's father, Isao, takes control of the situation. They fully intend on killing Kafka and turning his kaiju into a weapon. Meanwhile, Ichikawa and the others are all transferred to different divisions for training, but all they care about is Kafka's well-being. Even though Mina tries to assure Kafka that she will do everything in her power to free him, it is clear that the force's higher-ups will not let go of him easily. Even Shinomiya tries to stop her father from hurting Kafka, but he wants his daughter to think that Kafka is not a human at all. He decides to fight Kafka while wearing a special suit made out of the remains of a previous humanoid kaiju. This suit is incredibly powerful, and even in the face of such danger, Kafka does not transform. However, once he realizes he is in danger, he can no longer stand back and makes a full transformation. This triggers the kaiju within him to take full control of his body and go all out. Kafka's fight against Isao takes an unexpected turn as the kaiju within him takes full control and makes him bigger and stronger. Kafka seems to be indistinguishable from a mindless kaiju, and Shinomiya stares in horror as Kafka is almost about to kill her father. But Kafka stops himself from doing so once he remembers Mina and the promise he made to her. Instead of killing Isao, he damages his core and ends up falling unconscious. The defense force holds a meeting to figure out what to do with Kafka. Mina offers her perspective and tells the higher-ups that Kafka has been nothing but supportive and has demonstrated great camaraderie towards the other troops. The force decides to keep Kafka as a valuable ally, but some of them still think of him as a monster who needs to be destroyed. Isao gives Kafka this information while he is in the hospital. Though Kafka will remain in the defense force for now and everyone is happy to hear the news, there is still trouble brewing with the rest of the humanoid kaijus. Well, that's a wrap for the series. Kaiju number 8. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more content.